Today we are starting episode 1 of our 2023 NBA Draft Prospect Deep Dive. First up is Thompson. Can't wait to talk to you guys about the wing from Overtime Elite. Stay tuned for today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons, or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same thing with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So today we are having our first episode of our 2023 NBA Draft Prospect Deep Dive. This is the first prospect I am scouting this offseason. We got 2 weeks to go into the NBA Draft Lottery, and today we'll be talking about Thompson. So just want to take you guys through what you're going to be seeing through this episode. So first segment, we'll be talking about his strengths. Second segment, we'll talk about his weaknesses. And the third segment, we're going to have a summary of how I feel about him now in reference to the Pistons. Where do I think they should draft him? And overall thoughts. In that third segment is a topic that I know a lot of you guys are going to want my opinion on, which is the level of competition he plays. So we'll talk about that in the third segment. Before we get into his strengths, this is probably going to be a longer episode. I have a lot of notes that I took. I've watched as many games as possible. I watched games that he played for OTE against overseas competition. I watched him play against Mega, which is an overseas type of competition that you'll see Victor Wembanyama play against. Nikola Jokic played on. I watched him play against NBL competition. I watched as many games as possible with Thompson. I had a lot of fun scouting this player. So without further ado, let's get into it. So who is Thompson? Well, Thompson is a 6'7" wing from Overtime Elite. He is 20 years old. He's somewhere between 202 and 210 pounds. I saw a bunch of things, not really confirming. We haven't had a combine or anything, but I saw multiple things in between there. His wingspan, I could not find exact answers with that, again, because the combine hasn't happened. I saw things going from 6'9 to 6'11, so somewhere in between there. And if I had to give him a one sentence descriptor before we get into all of his strengths, my one sentence would be a potential future superstar with weaknesses that may scare some teams away. So without further ado, let's get into his strengths. So first strengths, if you watch Thompson, he is probably going to be the most athletic player on the floor 99% of the time throughout his career. When I say he is a 99th percentile athlete, I am not over-exaggerating even a little bit. He is a freak athlete in every sense of the word. He is a specimen of an athlete. I promise you, there's not many players that you're going to find that is a better athlete than Thompson. He has an elite first step. He is a nightmare in transition. If you get him out in transition, imagine him and Jaden Ivey flowing in transition. It is an absolute nightmare. Good luck trying to stop him. He's too fast. He's too explosive. He's scary in transition. Same thing on backdoor cuts. Backdoor cuts going downhill. All that stuff, he is a nightmare because of his athleticism and his ability to explode. Absolute freak athlete. And it's not just on the offensive side that you see these flashes too. He's also a freak athlete on the defensive side of the floor. You'll hear more about that a little bit later. I feel like after watching him as much as I did, I really do feel like he has a good feel for the game and is a smart basketball player. I really like that from my players. You guys know that. I've talked about that a lot. I want guys who are able to make the right read, play the right way, make the right pass. And I saw that a lot from Thompson when I watched him. I really do feel like he's a smart basketball player. With his athleticism and that elite first step, he has a good enough handle to where in the NBA, with NBA spacing, he should quite literally be a walking paint touch in the NBA. Now, it doesn't mean he'll always finish in the paint. We'll talk about all that later. But as far as getting to the paint, he should be a walking paint touch in the NBA with that level of spacing. That is huge. he should be creating all kinds of advantages for himself and for his teammates. He's not afraid of contact around the rim either. I wouldn't say he's exceptional with finishing through contact, but he's not afraid of it either, and he should draw a lot of fouls and a lot of free throws in the NBA simply from being so explosive around the rim and not shying away from contact. Again, I think he's a very coachable player. I read a lot of stuff about how he's been very willing to change his jump shot and work on his jump shot form. I've told you guys this many times on the podcast before. There are players in the NBA, I've been told, from trainers, from scouts, I've been told that there are players in the NBA who are too arrogant to really work on or change their shot form, because it's the shot form they've had their whole life and they've been a superstar their whole life. So some players really are too arrogant, and I can't blame them. That's how they get to where they are. You have to have a level of arrogance. But some players are just too arrogant to do that. Amen has been very willing of that. He's been very willing to be coached. He's very willing to do whatever it takes to get his jump shot to come around, and he's done that many times. So to me, that says a lot to me, because that says that you're a very coachable basketball player, that you want to get better and you're willing to change things to become a better basketball player. So that's a big thing to me too. I'm just going down my notes here, guys. So his explosiveness and athleticism, seriously, I can't talk about it enough. I'm going to keep bringing it up because he really is one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. Literally a 99th percentile athlete. I'm not exaggerating at all. And he's a player who hasn't even filled into his body. He's 6'7". I wouldn't say he's like Chet Holmgren, skinny and not strong. He has some strength, but nowhere near has he filled into his body. In like 5 to 6 years, I can only imagine the kind of body he has. He's not, I don't even feel like he's reached peak athleticism, and he already is one of the freakiest athletes I've seen. Despite his shooting struggles, which again we'll talk about later in his weaknesses segment, he does flash nice touch and control on his mid-range pull-ups. I don't know if that's something that you should, I wouldn't look too crazy into it, because his form really does need a lot of work, and I think that his shooting is going to be a long journey. But if you want to look for a positive and a reason to believe in it, he does show very nice touch in the mid-range, and he is under control on a lot of his pull-up shots in the mid-range. So that could be reason for optimism. And while he isn't a good shooter, this is something I really want to emphasize. While he is not a good shooter right now, he's not a non-shooter. He's someone who shoots but simply doesn't hit a high enough clip. He's not like a Ben Simmons who's scared to shoot. He's not someone who's afraid to shoot the ball. He's going to shoot the basketball. He has the utmost confidence. Him not being able to hit the three-point shot, the best clip, does not stop him from letting it go. He will shoot the ball if he's open. He gets the ball in the catch and shoot, he's shooting it confidently. Now, whether he makes it, it's different. But there's a difference between being a not great shooter and being a non-shooter. A non-shooter can hurt your offense. Being a not great shooter still can hurt your offense, but he has more gravity than simply someone who is refusing to not even look at the rim, which is like you see with Ben Simmons and stuff. So that is something I really want to emphasize. He's not a non-shooter. He's not a non-shooter. He's just simply someone who can't hit enough threes at this time. And he has a long way to go with that. But he's not a non-shooter. And then I want to move on to something that is probably the most intriguing part of Amen Thompson's game. He is 6'7", with freakish athletic ability, has a fine handle, can get to the paint basically whenever he wants, and playmaking is probably one of his best skill sets. He is a very nice passer. He is routinely making the right passes. He's routinely showed me through the games I've watched that he's able to make the cross-court skip pass, and he sees over the defense because of his height. He utilizes jump passes a lot to see over the defense, hold defenses with his eyes while he's in the air, then make a different pass. He is very good at reading the tagger when you run pick and roll on the weak side. When the weak side defender tags down the roller, he is very good at reading that and then making that cross-court pass or the same side corner pass if someone tags down the same side. He's very, very good in that area. He is a very nice basketball player, a very nice playmaker, especially in the pick and roll. I can't tell you guys how many times I saw him make that right play out of pick and roll and get to the paint and kick out to an open three-point shooter. He will make the right basketball play. He is really good. He has great vision. And then also going over to the defensive end. Again, you're going to hear some of the weaknesses go along with all these things, so you'll get the bigger picture later on in the segment. But defensively, he flashes some insane defensive potential. He isn't afraid to get up into offensive players. He is very physical when he's locked in. He's very physical and aggressive with ball handlers. There's many times I've watched him pick up a player 94 feet, and be aggressive with them all the way through. Take their lunch money and go. When he's locked in, a very aggressive on-ball defender, and with his athleticism, with his tools, with his physical attributes, he should be. He has the potential to be a really good point of attack defender. Not only is he flashing stuff as a point of attack defender, he flashes the ability to make the correct rotations off ball, and not just make the right rotation off ball. He makes some game-changing plays off ball as well. His weak side protection or weak side rim protection, when he's locked in, is absolutely legit. The dude's head is at the rim. He can swat things from the weak side that other people just simply can't contest. Now look, he doesn't do it all the time, which is something we'll talk about in the second segment. But when he's locked in defensively, he is absolutely a game changer. He can make crazy plays defensively on the weak side, rim protection when it comes in the passing lanes, and when he wants to get up into a defender or into an offensive player at the point of attack, good luck. Like when he's locked in, he flashed some crazy game-changing plays. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with of his positives real quick. There is a route for Thompson to become an all-star player without improving his jump shot. A 6'7" wing with his athleticism, 99th percentile type of athleticism, his ability to be a walking paint touch, create advantages for himself and his teammates, the ability to draw free throws, and if he does come along defensively and gets consistent on that end and locks in and becomes a two-way guy, that's an all-star basketball player without needing the outside shot. If he can improve the outside shot, we're talking crazy heights. But there is a route for him to become an all-star player without even improving the outside shot to where he's like a good shooter. He's a very fascinating prospect, man. A very fascinating prospect. I'm telling you guys this. I had a lot of fun. You guys know I'm not a big draft guy. Last year was my first year getting into it. I'm telling you guys this right now. I had more fun scouting Amon than I did any prospect from last year. And I'm going to assume, as of right now, this is the first guy I've done, but I doubt anyone else I'm going to have more fun watching than him. I had a ton of fun watching him and scouting his game. He's such an intriguing prospect. Such an intriguing prospect. But that's all of the strengths that I have for you. Now, of course, there's weaknesses to every prospect. What are Amon Thompson's weaknesses? We're going to talk about that when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetterHelp. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need for yourself. But when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burned out. Therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. It's helpful, BetterHelp that is, it's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. And it isn't just for people who've experienced major trauma, it's also for people who just try to get through daily life and be happy at the end of the day. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. I want to tell you guys to please go subscribe at the YouTube channel Locked On Pistons, or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Again, I want to make this very clear before we dive into his weaknesses. I had a lot of fun scouting this dude, man. I had a lot of fun scouting this dude. I know a lot of you guys are probably waiting, Koo. What's going on with his competition? What do you think about him playing in the OTE league? What can it translate? All that kind of stuff. That's coming in the third segment. Just stay tuned. I promise you, it's coming. But let's go ahead and talk about his weaknesses. And man, listen, he's an intriguing prospect. I really like Amon. Just to go ahead and spoil a little bit for the final segment, I really do. But he does have weaknesses. He very much has weaknesses. The first weakness, obviously, is his journey as a shooter. He has a long journey as a shooter to become a good shooter. This isn't just a player who, you could see him becoming a good shooter in the first 2 years of his career. Like, Amon probably needs to completely rework his entire form. He has a very long journey as a shooter. There's a very real outcome. There's a very real chance that he just never becomes a good shooter. Like, that is a very legit possibility. He's that far away right now. Now, again, like I said in the first segment, he's been very coachable. He wants to become a better shooter. He's done everything possible to try to become a better shooter. And that makes me believe in that. And the touch on the mid-range is a little bit enticing, but there's no sugarcoating it. There's a very real chance that he never becomes a good shooter, and if he does, this is something that's very far down the line of happening. But it's not just the three-point shooting. He also struggles at the free throw line. There were games where he would go 7 of 7 from the free throw line, but then there were other games where he would start off 0 of 6 from the free throw line in an OTE game. He needs a lot of work as a free throw, or as just an overall shooter. Again, he just has a very long road ahead of him when it comes to being a shooter. Now, this area right here is something I found very interesting. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back because this is something I feel like maybe I wouldn't have noticed 2 to 3 years ago when evaluating a player. But Ahmed is not the greatest finisher as of right now. There was a few times he did leave bunnies on the floor. It was multiple times when he left easy points on the basket. During his time with OTE, he shot 50% at the rim in the half court. The tough thing about that is that we don't have past comparative data to really compare what that number looks like compared to past people who are in OTE or other people that were in OTE that are legit prospects. Like, it's hard to compare that because OTE is very different. Trust me, it is very different from a lot of leagues. So it's tough to compare, but you think that someone of his athleticism and his ability to get to the rim consistently, he would finish better at the rim. And this is my conclusion for why he struggled around the rim. Or let me not say struggled. He wasn't as great as a finisher as you probably would have liked him to be. His handle is very loose, and he's not always confident in his handle as well. A lot of his finishes that he struggled, that he missed with, was because he takes off oftentimes far too far away from the rim. Like, he leaps like further out from the dotted line sometimes. Sometimes he leaps from the dotted line, where if he could just take one more dribble, he'd have a much easier look at the rim. The problem is he doesn't trust, at least from what I watched, he doesn't trust his own ball handle in traffic. And when he did, there were quite a few times where he was in traffic trying to take that one extra dribble, that the ball got poked loose, that the ball got knocked out, and he wasn't able to get all the way to the rim. So, because he's not confident in that, he oftentimes picks up his dribble too far away, relies way too much on his athleticism, his just raw athleticism, to get him all the way to the rim, and then that forces him to try to do like a double clutch finish or whatever, because he's jumping from so far away. That's something that I think very easily could be fixed in the NBA. Just improve his handle in traffic. I also believe that has something to do with his overall strength. I don't think he's a very strong player right now. I don't think he's weak, but I don't think he's a very strong player right now. He's definitely not completely built into his body yet, something that will come with NBA training. But once he gets stronger with the ball, just overall stronger, he'll get stronger with the ball on drives, and he'll probably feel more confident at that point once he can, like, he's stronger with the ball and he doesn't have to worry about guys knocking it out. But his handle in traffic 100% is something I really do believe he has to improve. He has some nice handles. He has some, actually, the best word I'd like to use is raw handles. He can break a dude down and beat you with a crossover. One of his favorite moves I saw from him was an in and out crossover to his left. He's able to break dudes down and shake them with that move. Now, just because he's able to do that doesn't mean he has a great handle. It's very loose still. And again, his handle in traffic needs a lot of work, because I really do feel like that's what's causing him to struggle or not be as good of a finisher as he could be, because he's picking up his gather so far away from the rim, and it's causing him to, jump from so far away and making the finish harder on him. So that, I feel like, is his, outside of shooting, that would be one of my biggest things for him that he has to improve on, because it really would make a lot of his game offensively easier for him. He has to become a better handler in traffic. Again, like I said, I think that really does, it's handle and his strength. If he was stronger, I don't think you see as many pokeouts. But those two things go hand in hand, I feel like, with his finishing as well. There's also times as well that I feel like he settles for tougher finishes when he shouldn't, because I guess the best way to put it is, I feel like sometimes he doesn't even realize how good of an athlete he actually is. Like, even with some of the moves he does, you're already looking at him like, oh my God, this dude's a crazy athlete. But then even still, even with that, I feel like there's even more that could be unlocked, and even he doesn't understand that he's an even better athlete than that. There's a lot of times I feel like he settles for finishes in like the floater area where he really could just explode and just jump right through a guy or over a guy and finish. I do feel like sometimes he does settle for finishes around that area. But again, that also I feel like may go back to the root of the problem, which is his handle and not trusting his handle to get him all the way to the rim and then therefore picking it up early. So I think that's where a lot of those issues come from. Now, understand this. I'm not saying he can't drive the ball. No, he 100% can drive the basketball. Trust me. Like I'm not worried about him being able to drive. I just think that it would be a lot easier for him. You would see it happen a lot more, and his finishing would be so much better if his handle was stronger. That's what I believe. No, I'm nowhere near trying to say that he can't drive the basketball. That would be foolish. That dude, I feel like he's going to be a walking paint touch nonetheless, especially with that type of spacing. And that takes us to the next thing. The OTE spacing was not great. OTE, I don't want to spoil my thoughts on OTE right now because I want to get into it in the third segment. It's something. That's what I'm going to say. It's something. The spacing wasn't great. So you think, kind of like the same thing with Jane Ivey at Purdue. People talk about the spacing there. And then you saw him once he got to the NBA, how spaced, and the Pistons didn't have good spacing. But when they did have spacing, how he was able to just get to the rim all the time. I see it as the same thing with Amen Thompson. I think that probably could help him too once he gets some better spacing. Now let's move on to his defense. This area right here was by far the hardest part for me to evaluate for him. And I want you guys to listen to this because this is important. He flashes, when I tell you guys legit, like he flashes legit defensive prowess. Like no joke. There is times where he can make game-changing plays that just other players can't make because he's too much of an athlete defensively. And when he's locked in, you see that. However, he wasn't locked in all the time with OTE. And there was multiple times where I found myself even asking, is Amen Thompson taking this league serious? Like, does he think this league is serious? There's times where he was just ball watching. There was times where he would take some plays off. There are some times where he would get too aggressive, get out of the play because he went for a steal, and then just like, whatever, I'm just going to walk back. And again, I chalk that back to, do you even take this league serious? Do you think OTE is a serious league? And it oftentimes also felt like he didn't really respect his opponent. Like, he just didn't care. Like, I'm just going to, like, even if I do this, you're not going to make the shot. Like, I feel like that was a lot of the things I saw in OTE. So while he has the physical tools, and at times when he was locked in, and he was locked in at times as well, and we'll talk about this in the third segment, when he went against overseas comp, when he went against NBL, when he went against Mega, when he went against that comp, that he was locked in defensively, and you saw this stuff. But again, throughout OTE season, it was up and down with his consistency with that. So again, while he shows that legit defensive prowess, and he has all the tools to be a crazy defender, there were there were a lot of times during the OTE season where I was just sitting there back thinking, do you even take this league serious? Like, is Amen taking this serious? So it's a question mark. He has the potential to be a great defender, but it's a question mark because you don't know. Is it just going to be flashes? That's the question. Is it just going to be flashes? Or do you think once he gets to an NBA program and he knows, hey, I'm in the NBA, like this is legit now, will he lock in more because of that? It's a question mark. So just want to bring that up. The tools are there, but it was inconsistent throughout the OT. And it really left me thinking, does he think OTE is serious? Like, does he take it? Does he take it serious? I don't love how he maneuvers around screens, but I don't think that's going to be his main priority, even though I do think he can be a great point of attack defender. I don't love how he maneuvers around screens, although I think he can, I think he can get better at that. I'm not too worried about it. It's an area to improve, and also he can get too aggressive sometimes on ball, trying to, really punk the ball handler, basically. I felt like a lot of times. He can get too aggressive sometimes, and it's like a high risk, high reward type of thing. So there's that. Those are the weaknesses with me. That's the weaknesses I have with Amen Thompson as of right now. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys have watched any Amen Thompson, let me know. Do you guys agree, disagree with some of the stuff I said? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, I want to give my summary, my overall thoughts on Amen Thompson. I'll dive into some of the questions about some of the competition he went against. I'm going to talk about all of that when we come back. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. that is another great way to support the podcast. All right, so everyone's been waiting for this. I know this is the question everyone's been asking. The comp with Amen Thompson. He's playing in the OTE league. What's my thoughts on the OTE league? It's not fun. It's not fun basketball. It's not good basketball. I don't like it. I don't like the OTE league at all. The OTE league is not very good. Now, I hear good things about its development off the floor, like outside of like actual games, like what they're doing with players off, like in practices and like that kind of stuff. I hear some fine things about that, but overall, it's like a league as a games and like that. It's awful basketball. I don't think it's very good basketball. And they have Agent Zero commentating games. Are we serious? Like I don't even feel like they take themselves seriously, which I guess is a little bit better because as long as they don't take themselves too serious and knows what they are, I guess. But whatever. So the OTE is not great. It's not great comp. It's not amazing comp or anything. But I have a pushback here. I don't buy into it, the comp being an issue for multiple reasons. One, he also played, Amen Thompson that is, he also played many games against overseas competition. It's not like Amen Thompson has not just played basketball against OTE guys. He's been around this for a while now. And against Mega, which again, Mega is an overseas basketball team that you'll see like players that come from overseas, like Victor Wembanyama will play against. I believe Nikola Jokic played for this team. I think also Jovic played for this team as well. Like that's the kind of competition. That's good competition. And in that game against them, he had 18 points, 9 assists, and 9 rebounds. He was very, very impressive in that game. I loved what I saw from him in that game. So that was against a good comp there. And then he had another game where he went against an NBL team, the Adelaide 36ers. You guys will remember them. They're the team that defeated the Phoenix Suns in preseason. He went against them. He played a very good game against them too. Played really well. So that's my main pushback against the competition argument. Yes, the OTE I don't think is a very good league, but he also has performed good against better competition. Now, he's had down games. He's had games where he's just not making shots. Everyone has some bad games. But when he's went against good comp, he's had good performances where you see all the things I pointed out throughout this podcast. You still see that stuff against a good comp. That's my overall main point, is that we have that, and he played well against those guys. The last point I'll have about the competition is this. Even against lesser comp, there's things that translate no matter what. If you go back a few years, and you guys remember, I brought this up many times on the podcast before. Bruce Brown played in the Summer League for the Pistons his second year. And in that league, he was doing some finishing stuff. He was hitting some shots, whatever. But that wasn't what I took away from it. What I took away was how quickly he was making reads as a primary ball handler and kicking out to open shooters and finding open guys. That's something that translates no matter what competition you're playing against. Your ability to read a defense and make the right basketball play. And that's something Amen Thompson does. He can do that. That's something that will translate. I don't care where he's at. That's something that translates no matter. That speaks to a high IQ and a guy who knows how to play basketball. So that's another reason why I'm not too concerned about it. Also, no matter what he's playing against, the tools that he has, I don't care if he's playing on a court with me. I don't care if he's playing on a court with LeBron James. He's going to be a 99th percentile athlete almost every court that he steps on. Like, he's that freak of an athlete. I don't care what comp he's going against. So I think the bigger problem is not about the comp with the OTE. It does make it harder for like the average person to evaluate a guy. Because a lot of people are just looking at raw numbers and like, oh, what do you do? Like box score stuff. That's not what you need to look for. Amen has a lot of tools. He has a lot of physical traits. He has a lot of stuff that should translate to any type of basketball. He has a lot of stuff. Now, will he struggle going to the – I do think he'll struggle a little bit at the beginning, just like a lot of rookies do. He probably will struggle a little bit going against NBA comp, NBA grown men, needing to get stronger. Like, that will be a little bit of an adjustment. But that's not going to stop him from becoming what he's going to be. Like, I guess we can go ahead and say it now. I'm very, very high on Amen Thompson. I love this prospect. So now we got the competition stuff out the way. Let me just go ahead and do a summary here. So here are some places where he's mocked. Ringer has him 4. ESPN mock has him 4. Tankathon has him 4. So a lot of places have him as the 4th prospect. What do I believe his ceiling is? I think he has a ceiling of being a superstar. Like, this dude, some of the physical traits he has, you just can't teach. And then if any of the other stuff I brought up is something that remains consistent and can translate to the NBA, that's a rare breed. You don't see many guys like him able to do it. His floor, a role player whose weaknesses will keep him off the floor in meaningful games. If he's not able to improve his jump shot and also not be able to prove his handle in traffic and also isn't consistent defensively, that the questions about his defense being able to be consistent, that actually turns out to be he's not consistent. He can't get into it defensively. Like, then he's just a role player who probably can't play meaningful games at that point in certain situations. I've seen a lot of people compare him to a bigger John Morant. I don't very much like that comp because I feel like he has a much higher defensive ceiling than John Morant does. But the type of athlete, his ability to make plays for others, like I see that with him as well. I do get that. Future role on the NBA team, a point forward with elite two-way impact on the game with a highlight reel that maybe will never be matched. Like, that's his ceiling as a future role on the team. Rotation fit, if he were to join the Pistons, he should start at the small forward position immediately for them, but they would need to get a legit floor spacer at the forward position, which I think they're going to try to do anyways. And then you would stagger him with the bench line and let him run actions on the bench. What he would impact on the roster: decrease in usage for bench guards like Killian Hayes, sadly. Coming from a Killian stand, all of you guys probably just cheered with that. But what he would 100% need an elite spacer no matter what at the four. Because things definitely could get clogged with Cade, Ivy, and Amon if they don't have spacing around them. Why the Pistons should take him? He has potential to be a future superstar. I truly believe it. This dude is crazy. This prospect, do I think he's high risk? I wouldn't say high risk, but there is risk to him. But he has some of the highest reward, I think, probably in the draft class. Now, this is the first guy I'm scouting. Next guy would be Brandon Miller, but his ceiling, I think, is really high. A player at his size, athleticism, being able to do the things he's able to do, being able to be a legitimate playmaker, be a walking paint touch, be able to make plays defensively, create advantages for himself and his teammates, it's just not common. He's a potential two-way superstar kind of play, and I'm not joking when I say he's a 99th percentile athlete. I'm not exaggerating at all. Imagine Amon and Ivy playing off-ball with Cade, on cuts, in transition, going downhill. It would be a living nightmare for defenses. It would be crazy. Like, I honestly could picture, like, there's something that goes on in my head. I can picture on-ball screens with Cade and Amon going downhill with a Cade pick and roll. If they double Cade, now you've got Amon going downhill against 4-on-3. Oh, my God. Like, it would be a nightmare. It would be an absolute nightmare. And transition also would be an absolute nightmare. And lastly, this is something you'll see with another prospect in Scoot Henderson. You'll probably get mentioned. The Pistons would have 3 legit creators that can create for others and for themselves, which I don't think many teams in the NBA have. And they would be in a unique position when it comes to building an NBA team. Why the team should not take him. Now, this is legit. Stay tuned for this too. His shooting is a serious concern. There's a very real possibility that he never becomes a fine shooter. That's a very legit possibility. If you don't believe, one, in your ability to develop that side of his game, or two, to have the creativity of your coach to not just put him in the corner and say, figure it out, or spot him up and say, figure it out, do not draft him. You have to be creative with him. You cannot just spot him up and say, here you go, improve as a spot-up shooter and attack closeout sometimes. If that's what your plan is, don't. Just don't draft him. Don't draft him. Get someone else who could do it. There's other players that can do that. If you're not going to be creative with them and you don't trust your coach to be creative with them, don't draft him. The tools are off the charts. He can be crafted into an insane player with the right development and personnel around him. So if you trust that, go ahead. If not, don't do it. If you don't believe your team has that personnel, again, do not draft him. If you don't believe in his two-way potential and you're scared off by the level of competition and OTE and how many plays he took off defensively and how he just, sometimes didn't take the league personally, I personally believe in his defense, but if you don't, do not take him because that's a big thing. If you don't believe in his defense, then you shouldn't draft him. If you don't think he can reach that height defensively, don't draft him. Amon needs to go to a franchise that sees that same potential I've laid out here for him and will be committed to his development to put him in the right positions to succeed with the personnel around him. If you don't believe your franchise has that, do not draft him. He is not an easy plug-and-play player. He's not a guy you just plug in and say, here you go, do whatever. If that's your plan, do not draft him. You just can't do it. It may not happen right away with Amon. You may have to wait. It may take a season. It may take half a season to start to see it from him. He's someone that I think he's probably going to have some initial struggles in the NBA and eventually get through it. If you're under pressure from ownership, we don't know, but if you're under pressure by ownership, Troy Weaver, to get immediate results, do not draft Amon because you will ruin his career and you'll get yourself fired. I'm going to need somewhere that will commit to his development process, that will go through some of the bumps and bruises with him because the potential ceiling is crazy. So if you believe that you can do that, you draft him. If not, stay away from him. Just stay away from him. Draft someone else that was easier for you. That said, my final thoughts on Amen Thompson. This dude is a crazy prospect. As of right, I haven't scouted any other guys, but I've read a lot of stuff about other guys. I've listened to people talk about other prospects. I think he's probably going to end up top 3 for me in this draft. I think it's probably going to go Victor, Scoot, and Amen. That's my right now. That's right now before I completely dive into everything else. I think I'm probably going to end up having Amen number 3. I'm really high on Amen. This dude could become a legit star in the league. I'm not too worried about the competition. I'm more worried about the type of team he goes to and the developmental system that he has. If you're creative with how you want to use him, and if his defense, that's the big question too. If his defense becomes more consistent and something he locks in on once he's in the NBA, I'm telling you, bro, just go watch this game. Go watch the game against Mega. Go watch the game. Oh my God, what game was it? I believe it was one of the playoff games against. Oh my God, I'm forgetting. I think it was against one of the Cold Hearts team, one of the Cold Heart games in the playoffs. Go watch some of the plays that he made defensively off ball. It's crazy. His rim protection, weak side is crazy. Some of his rotation, some of the plays he makes off ball. This dude just stacks the box score. If you want to just look at box score, there's so many games where he has like 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 5 steals, 5 blocks. Like he can literally do it all. He could potentially do it all. I really like Amen Thompson. I'm going to give you guys my official mock draft at the end of this, obviously, and my big board. But right now, I'm not going to lie. I think I'm probably going to end up having Amen Thompson 3. And if the Pistons were to draft him, I'd be extremely excited. I would be so excited. So that's my overall thoughts with Amen Thompson. I had a lot of fun, bro. You guys know that I've told you guys over and over, I don't like college basketball. And I like scouting and stuff. I tried to get into it more last year. I wouldn't say I had a lot of fun last year doing it. I did it. I did my job. I had a lot of fun watching Amen Thompson and breaking his game down and looking at his weaknesses and strengths and him as a prospect. I had a lot of fun with it. So let me know what you guys think about what I said in here. Did I convince you? Did I persuade you to like Amen Thompson? Did I say things that scared you away from Amen Thompson? Let me know all your thoughts with him in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Enjoy these playoff games. Until next time, peace out.